Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Hello.
Hello.
That was like way too exuberant. I need to take it down a notch.
You're usually not that exuberant.
Hey.
That's more normal.
No, that's not normal. That was me trying to sound stoned.
Oh, I've never seen that.
I've never even been stoned, which is like actually a shame.
I would love to see that.
I have a very pure body that has not experienced any drugs, actually.
We've been goody two shoes our whole lives.
Yeah. I'm now that marijuana is legal in so many places, I'm very open to it. I just need the right situation. I also would like to try mushrooms because I just want to see like what the other side of the universe looks like. You know what I mean?
I guess so, but wow, that feels a little trippy for me.
I'm into the idea. So if anyone wants to do a ceremony in a very safe space, I'm open to.
Watch out, you might get some emails about
I
it.
didn't know you. You can't be like some work person I've met on the internet who wants me to come over to their house and do drugs.
That's not
like
smart.
I'm not gonna do that. Anyway, if you would like a drug that's like really good for your system and doesn't have a lot of negative side effects.
Are you calling coaching a drug?
Yes.
I don't know if that counts.
It's not a drug. It's like a supplement.
It's like a vitamin.
A supplement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's a superfood for your brain
and your soul.
And I would say body. Because you harbor so much stress in your body, so much emotional crap. Hey, we read The Body Keeps the Score back in October. We learned about that. Working through your crap mentally, emotionally releases a lot of physical tension too.
Okay, well, that
was
a way
supplement.
That was one way to bring it back.
It's one way. I can always connect dots. Ask me to connect any dots, and I can get there in a number of jumps.
It might get weird, but we'll get there eventually.
Sure. So,
So we are in the middle of a coaching enrollment period. Most of you know what we're talking about, but in case you don't, we open enrollment for new clients 3 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in one right now, up until this coming Friday.
Only a few more days.
The 5th. And I'm going to be honest, we've gone several forms. It's been already. We've been talking to people. We've been signing new people up.
Several is an underestimate of what I believe we have received.
Agreed.
And by the time they're hearing this, I believe we have received, it's almost a week before they hear this.
I know.
At the time we're recording this. So I believe we've received more than several. And so there's only a few spots left, maybe, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're spinning your wheels, time to stop.
Yeah.
Time to get out of the car. Squelch your way through the mud, go up to like the nearest payphone. I don't know. This is the 90s in this example.
And maybe you're out of a service area. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then call Rachel and we'll come with the tow truck. That's what we're going to do.
I'm
all over the place today. Watch out.
Coaching is like a tow truck. Coaching is like a multivitamin / drug.
I think that a tow truck that also
metaphor.
services like supplements out the back is not a bad business idea.
Someone should do that. I think there's a market.
It can get you out of a lot of pinches.
Sure. There's a market for that.
I mean, I wouldn't start it, but I could come up with like clever names for said company.
I don't think we are in the tow truck business. I don't think we know nearly enough about how that operates to be good at that business, but we are very good at running a coaching business.
We can emotionally tow you out of your crap.
Sure.
And you got to do some work, but we've got the equipment necessary to help pull you out of it. You're laughing at me. This is a good analogy.
I am laughing because we just started and it's already off the rails.
It doesn't matter. Well, that's why they need a tow truck, because it's off the rails. So you should reach out to us if you want to do one-on-one coaching. If you're seriously considering it, if you're like, I'm heavily leaning toward this and I just need to talk and make sure that I'm a good fit and that we're, going to be able to do good work together, then fill out the form. in the episode notes, or you just go to clarityonfire.com, head to the Work With Us tab and find one-on-one coaching there. You can read more about it. We've got 2 kind of levels of it, 2 months versus 6 months. There's some differences.
Yeah, we can describe those a bit more in our conversation.
Yeah.
But just know that we do follow a process that we'll describe to you in more detail, but you are guided through a proven process that's going to help you get unstuck and get a lot more clear about what you want and where you're going and how to get there.
When the tow truck shows up, it's not like, how do you want to get out of this mud? You're like, bitch, I hired you to get me out of this mud. So help me.
Exactly. The tow truck is like,
I'm like, I know what to do. And I've also towed about like 1,000 other cars this year. So like, just shut up and let me tow you. And that's not exactly what I'm going to say to you, but you're not the first car you've ever towed. Know what I'm saying? And you're not so special. Like your Ferrari's not special enough that we don't know how to tow it.
Exactly. So again, just wanted to let some of you know this, if you've done different forms of coaching or different forms of therapy in the past, this might be different because we do follow a clear process specifically for getting you unstuck out of the mud of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a very garbled but interesting analogy, I feel. That's a new one. I've never used that one. I've used all sorts of...
No,
every time we do coaching enrollment, I come up with a new one.
You've never used the analogy of coaching is a tow truck that gives supplements out the back. That's a new one.
It is also a supplement separate from being a tow truck, but it is both. I think that's a handy tool.
If you're going to use multiple metaphors, we have to mix them. You have to just combine them, I think, and turn it into one crazy thing.
Okay. So, it might be the worst one I've ever come up with, but it's a visual. And now you know whether or not you want to talk to us. So just know that you have until Friday to decide whether or not to do that. And then after that, you got to put your name on the wait list and then we'll see if we have space for you.
Be listening to this after Friday the 5th, in which case that's fine. I'm not always the best at listening to my podcast right on time. So some of you might be more like me, following and catching up a little late. We might still have space whenever you're listening to this. Just fill out a wait list form and we'll let you know what our schedule is looking like.
Okay.
It's starting to fill up though, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I'm starting to get to that point where I'm like, oh. Mm-hmm. I always get to that point though, and then it always ends up being fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So today is not a magic 8 ball.
I don't know that they were paying hard enough attention that they
all we ever do anymore on Tuesdays is magic 8 balls. So
it's not that.
If you were expecting that, that's not what's happening today.
Well, you're getting something better, which is brand new content.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to talk about this and I didn't want to wait to talk about it. It could have been something we did later this month, but I just think it's really relevant right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard an anecdote from a friend the other day. I don't know if this is true. So if anyone knows where the research for this exists, because I didn't bother Googling before I sat down because I didn't think it was necessary because whether it's true or not, it's a good way to think about what I'm about to say. But if you know if this is based in fact, let me know. I heard a friend say that when they're training Navy SEALs, they do a hell of a lot of crap to them. Like very, 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 very mentally, physically rigorous stuff. Like it's basically torture.
Yeah, the point is to stretch you to your absolute limit.
And then beyond to see if you can handle it.
Emotionally, all of that.
Right.
And then a little beyond just to make sure you don't break.
So apparently the thing that Navy SEALs, maybe they studied them. I would be studying them too. In more ways than one. But apparently the thing they find the most torturous is that they don't know when the crap that is being inflicted upon them is going to end. Mm-hmm. It's not the crap itself. And the crap they're doing to them is awful. They're making them march for like 24 hours without stopping.
Run across the beach with logs on their back. I think
it's even worse than that. There's some psychological shit that's going on. And the thing they find the hardest is not the physical, is not the like sleeplessness or whatever. It's that they don't know when it's going to end.
Because even if you are in the most physically, mentally, emotionally uncomfortable situation, if I only have to be here for
3 more hours,
minutes, or even a couple more days,
or months even,
but it's going to end, You can
the relief.
take a deep breath.
Yeah.
You can steel yourself. You can kind of shove down whatever you need to shove down for a little while and push through it. But if you have no idea when it's going to end, you don't know how to prepare yourself. You don't know how long you
how
have
much
to
energy
be
you need
in this state of tension and resistance and pain sometimes.
Yeah, stress.
I get it.
It is torture.
That's the worst.
So you guys, this is the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
This is a job you hate that you have no idea how or when you're going to get out of it.
This is a health crisis.
This is, being sick and not knowing how you're going to recover. This is a marriage that has gone badly and that you have no idea when or if it'll ever get better. Mm-hmm. This is being single for some people. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things, more than one, you might currently be living through right now. We're all living through a pandemic, so there's that. And you might have other things too that fall under the camp of this feels like torture because I have no earthly idea if or when it will ever end. So what is the point of me sharing this with you? I think you can decide when it ends, even when you don't know when it ends. I am going to make a case for you deciding this ends by this date and then letting the universe help a sister or brother out to get to that point. I've had clients do this so many times over the years, and I have recently decided to implement it in my own life. And I shared this example in a recent episode. Remember how I said that if you hold a crystal up to light, it takes all that light that's just kind of diffuse and hanging around the room and it channels it through a very concentrated beam. Mm-hmm. That's what picking a deadline can do with your intentions. And the universe can really work with that. So I'm here to upgrade that and spend a little bit more time talking about it because I think it's incredibly useful and it's a mental hack to help you survive the current circumstances that you're in and be able to weather them a little better. Now, I don't think that you can just quit the pandemic. I don't think we can say the pandemic ends at this time. But there are certain things in your life, I think you can say, all right, I don't want to do this job past X date. And so what am I going to, all right, universe, I'm circling this date on my calendar. Like this is going to be my last day. I don't know how I'm going to get there or how you're going to help me, but this is going to be my last day. And so then working backward from that date, what do I need to do to set myself up for success to make it the most likely that I could actually be gone by that date?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this idea. And I'm actually thinking about it even in terms of something like a pandemic when you can't control the end date. But I feel like in my own mind and in a lot of people who I've talked to, it's almost like we had decided at different intervals, okay, we just have to make it through this time. Mm-hmm. So the pandemic started here in the US around March is when it really hit hard.
Well, that's
March
when we went into lockdown.
Yes. And we all kind of had in our heads, okay, if we can just get to the summer, then things will probably get better. Now, they didn't, frankly. Yeah. They didn't. But we had in our brains, like, we can do this for a few months. And then it was like, okay, well, it looks like it's going to be a little bit longer timeline. So maybe through the end of the year. Okay, we got to get through 2020. Whew, we did it. We got through 2020. Now we're 2020. We've got some vaccines coming in. Things are starting to get a little bit better. But I'm hearing people say, hey, we might not.
We have to wait till the summer again.
We have to wait till the summer again. But even if you give yourself those intervals, it's like, okay, I can do this for a few months. And then you can check back in and see where you're at. And you may or may not be completely done. So if you circle the day on the calendar for, I want to be done with this job by this day, does that mean 100% you were definitely going to be gone that day? No, but it gives you create your own light at the end of the tunnel.
That's exactly
And then you can check back in at that time and say, okay, am I really ready to do this? Or am I actually just ready for the next phase of this process? In which case, I'll set a new milestone for myself. But you have to have something to hold on to.
Yes.
Like if I can just make it this much longer. You need a lifeline. And you can give yourself
We can invent our own lifeline.
Even in something like a pandemic where you can't control it. If you can tell yourself a few more months, I can do this for a few more months. Then a few more months will go by and you'll be like, okay, I made it. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm. The reason that having no idea when something is going to end is so heavy is because it puts you in victim energy. it makes you feel like I am at the effect of this circumstance. I have no power over it. I am completely at the whim of forces outside of myself. And that is incredibly draining and exhausting and heavy to feel like a victim all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you invent a lifeline for yourself and you say, no, putting my foot down, this ends on this date or earlier. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to trust the universe to help align some things. And I'm going to probably have to figure out what I need to do in order to then, make it to that due date. You're not a victim anymore. You are taking initiative. You are setting an intention. You are taking your power back from the thing that's making you feel like you have none.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it feels lighter and it feels, easier. And so I think the thing that we do is that we look at something and it's like, well, I can't just quit being single. That's a thought that I had. And then recently I was like, well, there's all sorts of things I'd probably quit if I could. And I was like, but you can't quit being single. You can't just decide. You can't just write a resignation letter to singledom.
Right.
And then I stopped and I said, bitch, why not? And then I did. I wrote a resignation letter. So I was like, this isn't serving me anymore. I don't like this job.
Mm-hmm.
I need a promotion. And I was like, no, I quit. I decided I'm allowed to quit that. Who told me I can't quit?
Sure.
Who made up a rule? So you can write a resignation letter from something that you don't actually think you have any right to quit because it's not up to you. Well, bitch, who says?
Mm-hmm. And I would take it a step further, right? So you can resign from something that I'm done. I'm done with this marriage. I'm done with this job. I'm done with being single. I'm done with this health crisis. Whatever it is, I'm done with this. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be out of it today, but it does mean I am telling myself, I'm declaring to the universe, this is going to end. You can set a date. You can stretch yourself for a couple more months or weeks or however long. And then to amp it up a bit more, I start getting excited and visualizing what it's going to be like when you reach the end of that tunnel.
Yeah.
So I am not a Navy SEAL. Will never be. Don't have the mental capacity.
You're a little too old
or
at this
the physical
point.
capacity.
They've never let a woman be a Navy SEAL yet.
And I'm not going to be the first one. I'll tell you that. Definitely not me. But in my own mini version of when I'm exercising or running or whatever, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do this. If I can just go another quarter mile or half mile, you know what I do? You're going to laugh because you're going to be like, this is so Kristen. I'll be like, what am I going to eat after this?
I mean, you are the rat on the wheel with the cheese.
Uh-huh. And I can spend half a mile not even really thinking about being on the treadmill.
My God.
Right? And I'm telling you, it works. Think about what you're going to do when your singledom has ended. Think about what you're going to do when you are in that new job. How is that going to feel? Give yourself a little bit more robust light at the end of your tunnel, and it's going to make it feel more real that the tunnel will ultimately end.
Remember how a few weeks ago we brought back a blog about active versus passive waiting?
Mm-hmm.
Go back and scroll back a few weeks and find active versus passive waiting. Because this is active waiting.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of the first step in deciding to actively wait is making a timeline for yourself that may feel completely arbitrary, but I promise you is not. Because there is a little bit of alchemy that happens when you decide to make your intentions more concrete. Instead of waiting for life to change, you decide it's going to change. And then not all of that is up to you, but then some of that does become up to you. So, for example, I was coaching one of my former clients, one of my all-time faves around this thing. She's the one who told me about the Navy SEAL thing. And she would like to quit her job, right, by the end of this year and go and start her own business. That's a scary venture to have to replace your whole income. And so she's been feeling kind of energetically drained because this job takes so much from her. And when she has no idea when it's going to end, it's even more draining. So we picked a date, and then we walked it back and we went kind of month by month, maybe more like quarter by quarter. What are you going to need to do, have done at this point, and then at this point, and then at this point, to set you up for the most possible degree of success? And so she was very clearly able to articulate, well, by this point, I will have needed to get this in order, and I probably need to take this class. And all of these things that she wasn't doing because there was no deadline. There was no impetus for her to do it, but she was drained and she was exhausted and she was kind of feeling a little bit depressed about it.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, now that there's more concrete energy around it, she has more structure around it, she has more energy. And doesn't that make sense? Like, to kind of use a different analogy, not like holding the light or the crystal to the light, but it's like having a bunch of water that's just all over your floor in your kitchen is completely useless and also incredibly a big pain in your ass, to be frank.
Mm-hmm.
If you take that water and you put it in a bowl, in a container, A, it's not making a mess. B, it's useful, right? And it can actually serve a purpose. If it's just dispersed everywhere, like your energy is dispersed everywhere and you have no intentions, what use is that doing? You've got to tighten it up.
Yeah, let's focus it.
Yes.
And let's give it a little bit of urgency. Deadlines create urgency, which is not a bad thing.
Not desperation.
No, that's a totally different.
So I do have an example about that related to singledom that I think is interesting to talk about.
Okay.
You remember the book Callin in the One?
Yes.
It's kind of like The Artist's Way that we just talked about a week ago, or no, a few days ago. But for like manifesting a relationship. And the author of that book, Catherine Woodward Thomas, and she wrote this book like almost 20 years ago. She was in her early 40s and she'd never been married and she wanted to have kids. And so she said, like she picked a deadline, but what she said was, I want to be engaged by my birthday. And her birthday was 8 months away and she didn't have a boyfriend. So like, that to me is a slightly different intention than I want my singledom to be over by X date. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, she wanted to go from meeting someone to getting engaged in 8 months or less. To me, that's a little bit grippy and controlling. And
it's a little too much emphasis on the outcome, I would say. Like, I needed to show up this particular kind of way.
The specificity of the outcome bothers me. Now, again, she wrote a book about manifesting a relationship. And by the way, she did exactly what she set out to do.
Sure did.
And then they ended up consciously uncoupling, which is the book she wrote after that. Hey, and like maybe that was all part of her life journey. And like maybe she doesn't regret a thing. And she did have a daughter. Like she did have a kid that she wanted to have. So again, she was in her early 40s. She felt like her clock was ticking. She didn't have time to spare. She wanted to have a kid. She manifested a guy. She got exactly what she wanted, you know, but also be careful what you wish for, because just because you get exactly what you want doesn't mean you end up then having a lifelong relationship, which maybe she thought she wanted at the time.
Yeah. Same thing would happen with the job. If you say, I want to be done with this job by 6 months from today, and that you turn it's coming from a really desperate place, you might just take any old job to be done.
Right.
And that's not necessarily what you want. So what we're talking about here is giving yourself a light at the end of the tunnel, also being a little bit flexible and making sure that the actions you take in the meantime are intentional and meant to move you forward in a meaningful way, and not just trying to desperately cling to the next thing to get out of your current situation. In addition to giving yourself a light at the end of the tunnel, I also want to give people permission to take breaks along the way. So if you are in a situation that feels interminable and it feels like you're running a marathon that you don't know when it's going to end. So first of all,
who would just start running other than Forrest Gump?
Forrest Gump, I was about to say.
I know. And be like, I don't know when this ends. But like Forrest Gump, A, was not a real person.
Right.
But who would just start running and then not know when it was going to end?
Right.
I mean, you run a marathon and it's 26.2 or 3 miles or whatever. Obviously, I ain't never been close to a marathon, let alone run one. I've never even like watched someone else run one.
But I did hear that marathon runners often will run like 5 slow miles for every 1 fast mile. So they'll do these pushes, but then they'll give themselves these breaks. And there's little breaks set up all along the way where people have water and little snacks. And so you're allowed to give yourself the little break stations along your marathon run. So set the end. And then you might need some time where, for example, your client who's in a job that is really draining her and she doesn't know how much longer she's going to be here before she can do her own business. Can she take a Friday off once a month and just give herself a little bit of a pause so she can pace herself? So if it is by the end of the year that she hopes to be done, can you take little moments where you just breathe and stop focusing so much on this thing and give yourself a break? Because if you're trying to do something that feels like it's going on forever and you never take breaks, you will burn out. Period. Mm-hmm. You will burn out. So please bake those into your timetable as you're like, here's light at the end of the tunnel, but there's little lamps along the way to keep lighting the path. So I don't feel like I'm completely in the dark and stressed and burnt out.
A good idea she had too. I think someone else suggested this to her, but I liked it a lot, was that she is going to write a series of emails to herself and schedule them to be sent at certain intervals. So that's for great. Accountability.
I love that.
And then she and I scheduled like a halfway call in between, like over the summer, so that we have accountability there too. To check in with how she's doing.
Exactly. Accountability and a bit of a break. I mean, somebody to support you, somebody to encourage you to keep it going. It's like taking those little, like, what are those little fuel gummies that you take on long runs? I don't know why the marathon is sticking in my head, but it feels like
all I'm thinking about is like pot gummies, edibles.
No, you would not want to have those on a run. I think
I would run really well after eating edible.
Or you start wandering into the woods. God knows what would happen.
I mean, it would be a good workout.
No, they have this little like gel things that are,
I don't know what you're
give you electrolytes and the stuff that you.
I don't know what you're talking about because I don't run.
Someone who's listening knows what I'm talking about here. To refuel, essentially. You just need to refuel along the way. So take breaks, please.
So that's just a little nugget of wisdom and thought for you to consider today. And I'll also tie it back to coaching, because one of the problems you might be having in hearing this is, I would love for this job to end by X date, but I don't know what I need to do between picking a date. I don't even know
what I want on the other side of this job, much less what to do in the meantime.
Right. Like, I like the idea of picking an end date, but if I do that, all that's going to happen is I'm going to pick a date and then sit around wondering, what do I do between now and then?
Or I want to start a business. I don't know what business I want to start. I just know I'm interested in entrepreneurship.
So that's normal. And you might need to do some inner excavating to get to the point where you've released some fears and crap and maybe some programming around what you think is possible and isn't, so that you can actually decide, what do I want and what are my intentions? And then we can work through, all right, what do you want after this? Like, having a deadline is one thing, but knowing what to do with the time in between is another. And that's what coaching can help you do.
It's a good tie-in.
Well, I mean, it's just on the nose. I had to say it. Yeah. So that was it. Just a little short episode for you today.
I think that's often what we end up doing for clients, is we help them feel like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And they can start to see it more clearly, and they know how to navigate their way toward it, so it feels not so far off.
Yeah. Sometimes when you start coaching, you don't even really need the date, because the act of working on it makes you feel like, oh, I'm doing something now.
I've had clients tell me before our first session, just the fact that they filled out the questionnaire and they paid me, they feel so much better.
I'll give you one better.
I'm doing something. Someone's helping me.
I had a client today who I haven't even started working with yet, hasn't even paid her invoice yet, but is like, oh, I feel amazing after just having had this one introductory conversation, because I feel like I'm getting more intentional. Just this was me like taking a huge step in the direction of, I need to figure this out, and I'm going to figure this out. It was being decisive.
Yes. Indecisiveness is interminable.
It eats up so much energy. So picking a date is a form of deciding. And then you have to make other decisions because you just made that one.
Well, we picked a date for you if you're interested in coaching. It's Friday.
It's Friday.
That's your light at the end of this tunnel.
Okay.
For a little while at least.
So we will be back on Friday with a new episode of Dear Rachel.
Okay. Well, we'll see you then.
Bye.